a sudden, I'm in San Francisco doing another play, and I call down and say, hey, this is Sherman Evans. Hold it, we're looking for you.
They've been looking for him. They were looking for him high and low.
For over a decade, the Jeffersons made us laugh, but the biggest dramas were happening when the cameras stopped rolling. These stories were kept quiet for years, but now the truth is coming out. Here are the secrets of the Jeffersons that were hidden for decades. Secret 1. The first George Jefferson was a fake.
George, they don't know you here. He's joking.
Louise, I'll tell them when I'm joking. I was joking.
When audiences first met the Jefferson family on the hit show All in the Family, the man they thought was George Jefferson was an imposter. The show's creator, Norman Lear, had his heart set on one actor and one actor only for the role, Sherman Hemsley. Lear saw Hemsley performing in the Broadway musical Purlie and knew he had found his George. There was just one problem. Hemsley was locked into his Broadway contract and refused to break it. Instead of recasting the part, Lear made a risky gamble. He decided to wait. For 2 full years, the character of George Jefferson was talked about but never seen. To fill the void, Lear created a placeholder character, George's brother Henry, played by actor Mel Stewart. It was Henry who moved next door to Archie Bunker and traded insults with him. He was the Jefferson patriarch audiences got to know first. This clever move built up a huge amount of suspense around the real George. When Hemsley's contract finally ended and he stepped onto the set, the pressure was immense. He had to live up to 2 years of hype. The moment he arrived, the character of Henry was quickly written off the show, and the real George Jefferson made his explosive debut. Secret 2. The show was born from a confrontation.
Somebody wants to teach me about business? After what I've done? Remember, I started out with 3 strikes against me.
The very idea for the Jeffersons to move on up was not born in a writer's room. It was the result of a real-life confrontation with a radical activist group. Norman Lear was already producing the hit show Good Times, which depicted a poor black family living in the projects. One day, 3 members of the Black Panthers came to his office. They were fans of his work, but had a major complaint. They told Lear that every time you see a black family on TV, they are poor and struggling. They challenged him to show the other side of the black experience, a family that was successful, wealthy, and thriving. Lear took their criticism to heart. He realized they were right. He needed to create a show that offered a different perspective. That conversation was the spark that created The Jeffersons. The show was a direct answer to that challenge, designed to show a black family that had achieved the American dream and moved into a luxury high-rise. It was a political and social statement from the very beginning, born not from a network pitch, but from a demand for better representation. Secret 3. Isabel Sanford was forced into her role.
Jane called me. She said, I understand you don't want to go leave with the Jeffersons. I said, I don't. She said, why not? I said, because I like working in on the family.
While the show was a direct response to a social need, the actress who would become its heart wanted nothing to do with it. Isabel Sanford, who played the beloved Louise Wheezy Jefferson, was perfectly happy on All in the Family. The show was a massive success, and she was afraid to leave a sure thing for a new, unproven spin-off. She told her agent and the producers no, she wanted to stay right where she was. But the network had other plans. The casting director, Jane Murray, called Sanford and tried to convince her, telling her she would be a star. Sanford was not impressed. Finally, Murray gave her a brutal ultimatum. He told her that if she refused to do the Jeffersons, they would simply hire another actress to play Louise for the new show. And to make matters worse, they would write her character completely out of All in the Family. Sanford was cornered. She could either take the risky new role or lose the character of Louise forever. With no other choice, she reluctantly agreed. The role that would define her career and win her a historic Emmy Award was one she was essentially forced to take. Secret 4. The 21-year age gap that baffled the cast.
So Isabel, here's your new husband. She looked, there's your husband. She says, show him his dressing room, you know. So she looks me up and down.
With Wheezy in place, it was time for her to meet her husband. But the first meeting between Isabel Sanford and Sherman Hemsley was a moment of pure shock. One day on set, an assistant asked Sanford to show a young man up to the director's office. When she got there, the director turned to her and announced, "Isabel, this is your husband." Sanford was stunned. She was 58 years old at the time, and Sherman Hemsley was only 37, a full 21 years younger than her. She looked at what she later called the little man and thought he was so scrawny she could have squashed him like a bug. She could not believe that anyone in the world would find them believable as a married couple. The age difference was a huge risk, but it was a risk that paid off because of the incredible chemistry the two actors had on screen. Their bond became so iconic that for decades after the show ended, companies like Denny's and Old Navy would hire them to appear in commercials together, always as husband and wife. Secret 5, the real-life secret of the interracial couple.
Tom, there you are.
Helen, what are you doing here?
I'm going with you.
One of the most groundbreaking parts of the Jeffersons was the introduction of Tom and Helen Willis, the first interracial couple to be featured as main characters on a primetime sitcom. In the 1970s, this was a hugely controversial move, and the producers were nervous about how audiences would react. During the casting process, they sat down with actress Roxy Roker, who was up for the part of Helen. They cautiously asked her if she would be comfortable playing a black woman married to a white man. Roker's response left them speechless. Without saying a word, she reached into her purse and pulled out a photograph of her real-life husband, a white television producer named Cy Kravitz. The producer's biggest fear was actually her everyday reality. This secret personal connection gave her performance an undeniable authenticity. Secret 6, the Queen and the Neck.
She just took off like a shot, disappeared, didn't even have the decency to say goodbye. And who was the one left to take care of Mama, struggled through high school?
Behind the scenes, the cast developed their own family dynamic, complete with affectionate and hilarious nicknames for each other. Because of Isabel Sanford's regal presence and natural air of authority, Sherman Hemsley and the rest of the cast respectfully called her the Queen. They said she wasn't a diva, but she simply commanded respect wherever she went. Sanford had her own nickname for Hemsley, though it was a little less glamorous. She thought he was so skinny and scrawny at just 135 pounds that she lovingly called him Neck. She joked that he was all neck, and the name stuck. These private nicknames were a sign of the deep, playful bond that formed between the two stars, a world away from their characters' constant bickering. Secret 7, the real Wheezy. In Sherman Hemsley's life.
I could have wound him around my little finger like that. She didn't know I had a big mouth, I guess. So then, we just right away, she just gave me one look, and then I guess she felt sorry for me because I was probably shaking like a leaf.
One of the most iconic parts of the show was George's loud, screeching call for his wife, "Wheezy." But that famous nickname wasn't invented by the show's writers. It came directly from Sherman Hemsley's childhood. Growing up in Philadelphia, Hemsley had a huge crush on a neighborhood girl named Louise. His special nickname for her was Wheezy. Years later, during the filming of an early episode, Hemsley was in the middle of one of George's classic tirades. In the heat of the moment, he accidentally yelled for Wheezy instead of Louise. The mistake was a happy one. The producers and writers loved the sound of it, and Isabel Sanford agreed to let him keep using it. A childhood crush from the streets of Philadelphia accidentally became a piece of television history. Secret 8, Marla Gibbs's secret double life.
She's a very funny lady on stage, but she's a very serious lady off stage in her own private life. Would you consider yourself a dreamer when you were little? Because I know that you read a lot of books.
Marla Gibbs, who played the sharp-tongued maid Florence Johnston, was hiding a huge secret for the first 2 years of the show. She was so convinced that her acting career was a long shot and that the Jeffersons could be canceled at any moment that she refused to quit her day job. While she was becoming a famous television star, she was also living a secret double life as a reservations agent for United Airlines. She would spend her days on the set, trading insults with George Jefferson. Then, when filming wrapped, she would rush to her other job to work the night shift, answering phones and booking flights. She kept this up for 2 full years, only quitting the airline after the show became a certified smash hit and she knew her acting job was secure. She was not willing to give up a steady paycheck until she was absolutely sure Hollywood was not just a passing dream. Secret 9. The on-set feud between Florence and Wheezy.
You know, she would always be on Sherman's side. And so she said, you know, don't need a maid with this itty-bitty house.
On screen, Florence and Wheezy were close friends, but behind the scenes, there was a quiet professional friction between the two actresses. The conflict came from their very different approaches to acting. Isabel Sanford was a veteran of the stage and was very disciplined. She believed in sticking to the script exactly as it was written. Marla Gibbs, on the other hand, loved to improvise. She would often change her lines during taping to get a bigger laugh. This drove Sanford crazy. She would get upset and ask Gibbs, "Is that what you're going to say?" The tension grew as Florence became a breakout character. Fans would often approach Sanford and tell her that Gibbs made the show, which was deeply hurtful to the show's lead actress. Secret 10. Mother Jefferson's heartbreaking final days.
Hi, Mama. Everything all right? Oh, everything is just lovely.
Zara Cully, the actress who played George's feisty and hilarious mother, Olivia Jefferson, was a fan favorite. Her constant insults aimed at her daughter-in-law, Wheezy, were some of the show's funniest moments. But during the 3rd season, fans began to notice a change. Cully started appearing less frequently, and when she did, she looked noticeably thinner and more frail. The sad secret was that she was battling a severe case of pneumonia, which was later diagnosed as lung cancer. She fought to keep working as long as she could, but her health was declining rapidly. Zara Cully passed away in 1978 at the age of 86. In a move that was rare for a sitcom, the show's writers decided to honor her by having her character, Mother Jefferson, pass away as well. Secret 11. The first Lionel was a hitchhiker. The story of how the original Lionel Jefferson was cast is one of the most unbelievable in Hollywood history. The actor, Mike Evans, had absolutely no professional acting experience. In fact, he wasn't even trying to become an actor. One day, he was hitchhiking in Los Angeles when someone picked him up. The driver mentioned that there was an audition for a new Norman Lear show, and on a whim, Evans decided to go. He walked into the casting call with no resume, no headshots, and no experience. He was just a young man who had been hitchhiking minutes earlier. But he had a natural talent that the casting directors saw immediately. Against all odds, he beat out hundreds of other aspiring actors and landed the role of Lionel Jefferson, a part that would make him a star and change his life forever. Secret 12. Why the original Lionel vanished. After just 1 season of The Jeffersons, Mike Evans, the original Lionel, suddenly disappeared from the show. Fans were confused, but the secret reason for his departure was a testament to his incredible ambition. Evans felt that his character was not getting enough screen time and was being pushed to the side. But the main reason he left was that he had achieved something almost unheard of for a young actor. He had co-created another hit show for Norman Lear. Along with writer Eric Monte, Evans was the creative mind behind Good Times, another groundbreaking sitcom. He chose to step away from his on-camera role on The Jeffersons to focus on his powerful new position as a creator and writer. Secret 13. The new Lionel confused. Everyone with Mike Evans gone, the producers had to find a new Lionel. They hired a talented young actor named Damon Evans, but their choice led to one of the most confusing recasts in TV history. The two actors, Mike Evans and Damon Evans, were not related at all, but their nearly identical names caused chaos for the audience. Viewers at home were baffled. They knew Lionel looked completely different, but the similar names made them question if they were imagining things. There was no internet to quickly look up the answer, so the confusion lingered for years. For 3 seasons, Damon Evans played the part, doing his best to fill the shoes of the original. But the strange casting decision left a cloud of confusion over the character. Secret 14. The original Lionel's shocking return and final disappearance. Just when audiences had finally gotten used to the new Lionel, the show threw them another curveball. In 1979, after 3 seasons away, the original Lionel, Mike Evans, returned to the show. He stepped back into the role that made him famous, and Damon Evans was out. Mike played the character for 2 more full seasons, but his heart was no longer in it. His appearances became less and less frequent. His acting career was becoming secondary to his new passion for investing in real estate. Finally, the writers decided the character's journey had become too unstable. In the show's final season, Lionel and his wife Jenny got a divorce, and the character of Lionel Jefferson disappeared from the show for good. The strange revolving door of actors had finally come to an end. Secret 15. Norman Lear's secret war with CBS on screen, The Jeffersons was a place of laughter, but behind the scenes it was a constant battleground. The show's creator, Norman Lear, was in a secret war with the executives at the CBS network. Lear was famous for pushing boundaries and using his sitcoms to talk about serious social issues. He wanted The Jeffersons to be more than just funny. He wanted it to be relevant and daring. The network censors, however, were terrified of controversy. They wanted a safe, traditional comedy. This led to constant clashes over scripts and storylines. Lear would fight for episodes about racism, gun control, and other hot-button topics, while the network executives would try to water them down or remove them completely. Secret 16. The transgender character that shocked America. One of Norman Lear's biggest victories against the network censors came in an episode that was decades ahead of its time. The show became the first primetime sitcom in history to feature a transgender character. In the storyline, George is excited to reunite with an old buddy from his time in the Army, a tough guy named Eddie. But when his friend arrives, George is shocked to learn that Eddie has undergone gender reassignment surgery and is now living as a woman named Edie. For a 1970s sitcom, this was an absolutely revolutionary and potentially shocking topic to tackle. It was a brave and compassionate storyline that introduced millions of viewers to a concept they had likely never seen or discussed before, proving that The Jeffersons was willing to go where no comedy had gone before. Secret 17. The episode that put the KKK on a sitcom. The show's courage did not stop there. It was one of the few sitcoms brave enough to tackle the subject of the Ku Klux Klan. In a powerful and serious episode, George and Louise come face to face with a Klan member, forcing them to confront one of the most hateful symbols of racism in America. The episode was a stark reminder that even in their deluxe apartment in the sky, the realities of prejudice were never far away. The writers also crafted episodes that dealt with other difficult subjects rarely seen in comedies, including alcoholism, adult illiteracy, and even suicide. These moments of drama and social commentary were a core part of the show's DNA. Secret 18. The famous dance that was never choreographed. One of the most beloved running gags on the show was George Jefferson's iconic strut. Whenever he was happy or proud, he would break into a unique, stiff-legged dance that was pure, unfiltered George. But that famous dance was not invented by a fancy Hollywood choreographer. It was 100% Sherman Hemsley. The dance was a real move from his youth called the Philly Slop, a popular dance in his hometown of Philadelphia. There was no stunt double and no studio polish. It was just Hemsley bringing a piece of his own neighborhood swagger to the character. He unleashed it on national television, and it became an instant classic, the perfect physical expression of George's oversized ego and pure charisma. Secret 19. The lawsuit claiming the show was stolen. While Norman Lear was celebrated as a television genius, a dark cloud hung over the creation of his most famous shows. In 1977, a black screenwriter named Eric Monte filed a massive lawsuit against Lear, CBS, and other producers. Monte claimed that he was the true creator and that his ideas for The Jeffersons, Good Times, and What's Happening had been stolen from him. The case was eventually settled out of court, with Monte receiving a payment of $1 million and a small percentage of the profits from Good Times. While the settlement suggested his claims had merit, Monte said the victory came at a terrible price. He alleged that after the lawsuit, he was blacklisted in Hollywood. The powerful producers he had challenged labeled him as difficult to work with, and his once promising career came to a sudden halt. Secret 20. Sherman Hemsley's intensely private world. The man who played the loud, arrogant, and always in-your-face George Jefferson could not have been more different from his character in real life. Sherman Hemsley was a shy, intensely private man who was often described as a recluse. He hated the Hollywood spotlight, never married, and had no children. He found it difficult to be rude, even for a role, and said that playing George was a real challenge for him. For his entire life, he kept his personal world a complete secret. It was only after he passed away that his co-star, Damon Evans, revealed what many of his close friends had known for years. Hemsley was gay. In an era when being openly gay could destroy an actor's career, especially for a black man, he made the difficult choice to hide his true self from the public to protect the career he had worked so hard to build. Secret 21. The show was canceled by the newspaper. After 11 seasons and 253 episodes, The Jeffersons was still a popular show. The cast and crew finished filming the 11th season and went on their summer break, fully expecting to return for a 12th. But they would never film another episode. In a shocking act of disrespect, CBS abruptly canceled the show without telling a single member of the cast. There were no phone calls, no meetings, and no warnings. The actors who had dedicated over a decade of their lives to the network found out in the most humiliating ways possible. Sherman Hemsley was at home reading the morning paper when he saw an article announcing that his show was over. Franklin Cover, who played Tom Willis, was watching Entertainment Tonight when a reporter casually mentioned the cancellation. The news came as a complete and total shock. Secret 22. Isabel Sanford's decades-long grudge. For Isabel Sanford, the way the cancellation was handled was more than just shocking. It was a deep and personal insult that she never forgave. Her cousin had to call her from New York to tell her the news, having read about it in a tabloid magazine. Sanford was furious. She had given 11 years of her life to the show, becoming the first black woman to win an Emmy for Best Actress in a comedy series along the way. To be treated so dismissively by the network was a betrayal she could not forget. For the rest of her life, she spoke publicly about how disrespectful the cancellation was. For a show that had been a cornerstone of the CBS lineup for over a decade, ending it without even the courtesy of a phone call was a final, bitter slap in the face. Secret 23. The finale that was never filmed. Because the cancellation was so sudden and unexpected, there was no time to write or film a proper series finale. The last episode that ever aired, titled Red Robins, was just a regular run-of-the-mill story about George trying to win a Dry Cleaner of the Year award. It ended like any other episode, with no goodbyes and no sense of closure. The story of the Jefferson family was left completely unfinished. Fans never got to see what happened to the characters they had grown to love. The cast was denied the chance to take a final bow and say goodbye to the roles that had defined their careers. The show that had made television history simply vanished from the airwaves, leaving a void that a proper finale was meant to fill. Secret 24. The guest stars who became superstars. Throughout its long run, the deluxe apartment in the sky was a stopping point for many future superstars. A very young Jaleel White, who would later become world famous as Steve Urkel on Family Matters, had his very first acting role on the show, playing a piano prodigy. Cheryl Lee Ralph, before she became a Broadway legend and an Emmy winner for Abbott Elementary, appeared in an episode as Louise's secretary. Saturday Night Live original cast member Garrett Morris had a recurring role as a character named Jimmy. And the show was also visited by music royalty, with legends like Gladys Knight and the singing group Sister Sledge, making memorable guest appearances as themselves. It was a testament to the show's popularity that so many stars, both established and aspiring, wanted to share the screen with the Jeffersons. Secret 25. The cast's final on-screen reunion. While The Jeffersons never got its own finale, the show's three biggest stars did get one last chance to share the screen and say a proper goodbye. In 1996, 11 years after their own show was so rudely canceled, Sherman Hemsley, Isabel Sanford, and Marla Gibbs made a surprise appearance on the series finale of another iconic black sitcom, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. In the episode, as the Banks family is preparing to sell their mansion, a potential new buyer shows up at the door. The door opens, and there they are, George, Wheezy, and Florence, ready to move on up one last time. It was a brief but beautiful moment that gave fans the closure they had been denied years earlier, allowing three beloved characters a final fitting curtain call. The laughter that the Jeffersons brought into millions of homes was the hard-won product of a brilliant cast that navigated behind-the-scenes battles, personal struggles, and a final shocking betrayal from the network they called home. The story of the show is not just about moving on up. It is about the resilience it took to create a television classic against all odds.